We're back. I told y'all that the last episode was gonna, fam, was that not the best episode ever? For those that do not know what I'm talking about, I really do want you to pause right now, honestly. I don't know if it's wise for me to tell you to come off this episode, but I really do need you. If you have not seen last week's episode, which is episode 2, of season 2, I need you to actually go watch that because it was amazing. But now you guys know the cat is out of the bag. We are going to be having guests on the Whole You Pod. And I'm super excited about all of the people that I'm blessed to know and them coming on and just talking with me here at the Whole You Pod. So I'm really hoping that you enjoyed last Monday's episode. It's me, though, today. We're back. We're not going to have a guest today, but I'm excited to be back with you guys. I hope that you guys have had a great week last week, and I'm just still overly hype about everything that we're going to be doing in this season 2 of the Whole You Pod. This, again, for those that do not know, is the podcast where culture meets wellness. So with that in mind, let's get started, fam. You know what time it is? Culture code. You know it. So y'all have to know that at some point in this second season, we were going to talk about Target. We were going to talk about it, and we're going to talk in today's culture code about when Target is the target. Okay. So you guys know that there is all of this dialogue around whether or not we should be supporting Target as well as other organizations and companies, because Target is definitely not the only one that has decided to come out of DEI, right? And not only are they deciding to come out of it, we also need to be mindful about the speed in which they did. It's like President Trump took office and y'all were too excited. It's no company was just like, oh, we have to see. It was just like, shoom. It was just like, y'all were too hype about the fact that you had to let go of your DEI situation. And we think that all of that is suspect, right? Now, we could definitely have a conversation about whether or not companies should be forced in the first place, which is sometimes a part of the opposing dialogue, that if it's not something that they want to do, what does it matter if they're forced to do it because they mean that they don't really mean it. But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to tell people to do better until they know that they ought to do better, okay? And so Audi, if you don't know, quietly removed all mentions of DEI from their career page. And so one of the things that I want to say is, if we're going to boycott, I think that we need to boycott every single company that decided to no longer provide opportunities across the board. So we can make Target a target, but we have to be careful because Target is not the only target. One of the things with that in mind, fam, that I want to talk about that is really the theme of what's going on right now is boycotting then versus now. What does it look like for us to be strategic as we boycott things that we feel are unjust? And what is the difference between how it used to happen versus what's going on now? One of the things that I think is interesting is that if you know your history around what happened with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is that right before he was assassinated, he was about to turn the corner in some of their initiatives. And was about to start dealing with economics in this country. And when he started dealing with the poor man's march, dealing with inequity regarding financial matters in this country, is now when, right, they decide to pull the trigger on him being assassinated. I say that to say this. Even back in the hour that we were doing sit-ins, and we'll talk in a minute about the Montgomery bus boycott, the reality is that our financial power has always been an issue with our country and should have always been something that we have our eye on regarding our voice being heard. So, yes, it is important to march. That is an outward display and expression that we are not pleased with something that is happening. But you want to boycott not just to say we're not pleased, but we have to find ways to boycott to say not only are we not pleased, but we're not going to accept it. And we can do that regarding where we put our money. And so let's look at then and now, family, regarding boycotts. So you know the Montgomery bus boycott, y'all, was from December 5th, 1955, all the way to December 20th, my birthday, 1956. Let me say that again. It was from December 5th, 1995, all the way to December 20th, 1956, family. That was the next year. That was approximately 381 days. And I want to ask you a question. Are you willing to stand by what you believe for 381 days? Because right now, we're talking about let's boycott Target for 30 days, or let's boycott this for 6 months. The reality is that 30 days may not work. 6 months may not work. And clearly we've seen that it took over a year for something to actually work. Are we willing to be consistent with saying that once we make noise, we're not going to stop making noise until you all start making change? And so this generation, this current generation of young people, I'm saying people like 21 years old to like 35 to 40, you all are going to have to start to decide, how are you going to go about making sure that your voice is not just heard, but respected? How do you all plan to stand up to injustice? How do you plan to make those that are in power listen to you if you feel like you don't share that same cachet of power? You have to start thinking about that. The other thing that I want to put on record is that boycotting is not going to look the way that it looks even in mass. That back in the day, there was one identified leader that was organizing, not to say that they didn't have a whole team behind them, but there was one designated leader. And lately, I've been like, who is that designated leader going to be in the future? Who's waiting in the wings? And while I think that there are one or two people that might rise to that occasion soon, one of the things that I'm thinking is that I don't know if we're going to continue to have one isolated leader. And so we have to look at being strategic and still being able to organize. But will there be a leader when it comes to tech? Will there be a leader when it comes to the government? Will there be a leader when it comes to industry? Will there be a leader when it comes to the entertainment industry? We need to be strategic about what it means to have civil rights leaders. And remember, civil rights is just simply that, civil rights. So we have to start being educated. And I do want to say one other thing. And I'm going to go on the record with this as well. And I have a company that actually supports this. It's called Healthy Haven, and the division is called Destination Next. We cannot afford, with the speed of which the world is moving now, to allow seasoned individuals in their later years to lead until they drop dead. We cannot do that anymore. So we need to start thinking about putting time limits on how long people are serving in roles, whether it be government, whether it be in the private sector, whether it be organizations, because what happens is what is happening right now, where there is a leadership vacuum. There's all of these leadership vacancies because we have people that are still sitting in these roles. They did not even allow other people to come up and be guided in mentorship with them as they do what they do. And they're holding on to these positions that they've now connected to their identity and their worth. And all the while, we have people that are still being discriminated against because of the fact that you refuse to not just leave, you won't scoot over. You won't even scoot over. And so we have to look at how we're going to move into the future regarding making sure that this country does not continue with the need to have the haves and the have-nots. I believe that in the future, we're going to be able to get to a place where every person is respected. And again, we do not have to agree to respect. We do not have to agree to be kind, but gone are the days where all of the money is literally at the top 10% and that it's able to be up there because we're going to do everything in our power to keep the 90% poor. We need to be strategic in making sure that we begin to spread out the wealth and the power that is happening in the United States of America. Because if we don't do that, we are going to risk not being the power player that we think we are. There are other countries, there are other nations that are very close on our tail. They think that we are a bunch of banshees because that's the way that we've been behaving. And if we're not careful, if we begin to be reckless in how we manage one another, how we manage finance in this country, how we manage power in this country, what's going to happen is that we're going to look up and on the global scene, we're not going to have any power. And so I charge this generation, one, to get involved, one, to be informed on what is going on, and to not be passive and allow things to be happening all around you, but to get involved in what's going on to shape a future that is beautiful, that is peaceful, and also that is unified, okay? So that's my political vote for me. My name is Kalita Forbes, even though I'm not running for no office. But nevertheless, family, we definitely need to pay attention to what's going on in our nation right now. And we don't need to be afraid. We need to become educated. And then I want us to be intelligent about how we're going to move forward, okay? We need the modern march. What is the modern way to march? That was good. All right, family, y'all know what's next. It is Ask Dr. K, right? And so this is our question for today. What are the signs that someone is suppressing their emotions rather than processing them? What are the signs that someone is suppressing their emotions rather than processing them? Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the signs. One of the signs, which is a sign actually for the person, is health challenges. That a lot of times when we suppress the things that we are experiencing in our souls, what happens is that our physical bodies begin to literally cry out for that which we refuse to give language to, if that makes sense. And so there is a book, and I believe the title is that the body keeps the score. And the reason why I absolutely love that book is because it literally speaks to the different ways that suppressed trauma can manifest itself in our bodies. And so one of the signs for the person carrying the trauma, as you're observing other people, is that a lot of times when people are having a lot of health issues, headaches all the time, insomnia, also digestive issues in the gut area, that all gut digestive deals with anxiety, excessive worry, and stress. And so that's one of the signs. The other sign is an interesting twofold that I can offer to you, and that's this. One is that when people are suppressing their emotions, they go completely inward. Those are people who we say are really quiet. Which I often say that people need to keep their eye on people that are attempting to present as if they're quiet. Because at the end of the day, just because someone is not saying anything doesn't mean that they're not feeling anything. And that it's actually sometimes a little more concerning the person who is not saying anything versus the person that's saying everything. And so you have to be careful, because what will happen is that, one, when you don't verbalize or express within community or safe spaces what you're feeling, what you're thinking, you're left with your own thoughts. And you're also left, for those that have any type of a Christian faith context, with what we call the underworld being able to give you suggestions without a retort. And so you have to be very careful to not go inside yourself, because then you're left to your own devices regarding what you're thinking, and no one or nothing around you has the ability to provide a reframe, or, if you will, to provide a way out of that thought. And those are the ways that you can begin to sink into depression, that you can begin to really magnify something that does not deserve that much attention. And so you have to watch that. So people that go inward, that are quiet, that are silent, that are not social at all, that's one sign. Another sign are people that just literally have outbursts, that their response to some situation that is literally a number 2 situation is a response that's a number 10. That's letting you know that that person is suppressing their emotions, and that depending on a trigger, that what's dangerous, that oftentimes they cannot control what trigger they actually explode on. The response is that way, not because of the situation, but the situation triggered a whole bunch of things that are being suppressed. That is the type of stuff that lands people with manslaughter, and they end up in prison. There are so many people in prisons today that are in there simply because they suppressed what they were feeling. And so, family, you have to be very careful to give your emotions the ability to be hit by what I call the light of day. That you need air, that you need something to hit this. You need wind to move it. You need to realize that your body is literally not wired to carry trauma. Your body is actually not wired to hold negativity. And so you have to be very careful. There are clinical research studies that prove the connection between certain cancers in our bodies and what emotions they're connected to. Look it up if you have time, not from a place of fear, but from a place of appreciating what is going on with your emotions impacts your physical body. Because remember, God has created us as whole beings, right? Body, soul, and spirit. And so these things are not fragmented. They all work together in concert. And so you have to pay attention to what you're feeling. And lastly, not to be afraid of what we call those difficult emotions, that sometimes people suppress them because they don't want to have to confront the feelings of shame. They don't want to sit in the fact that they're disappointed. And so you will push that down, but nevertheless, it's still chipping away at the quality of, let's say, the relationship that now you have all this disappointment around. So now, even if you stay present in that relationship, it's now a taintedness that's moving through that dynamic because you are repressing something that you're feeling towards this person, and they're none the wiser. But literally, there's going to start to become fractures, if you will, in the relationship dynamic where the disappointment could have been worked through. But because it never came to the light of day, your lack of courage in accepting how you feel, your lack of courage to then express how you feel will cause you to lose a relationship when in actuality, that relationship could have gone further had you not chose to suppress what you were feeling. I want to say one more thing that I feel led to say in this moment. I want you all to stop shaming yourselves for how you feel, to stop beating yourself up that you're disappointed, to stop beating yourself up because you're offended. What I want is that disappointment to not begin to be a prison guard. What I want you to do is sit in the fact that you're offended. I want you to sit in that. And I want you to process through it so that it doesn't start giving you orders. I want you to stop beating yourself up because you feel. And remember, feelings are not right or wrong. They just are. They are things that are connected to our makeup to make us aware. Feelings are alerts. Something is trying to get your attention. And I want you to start to be willing to have more command over your feelings, and that you not just be the type of person that can only entertain the happy feelings. I want you to be open to receiving every alert that God is divinely allowing to come up on the inside of you so that he can talk to you, so that he can transform you, okay? And so it's not necessary to suppress your feelings. Let yourself hear what you're saying, and then make sure that you're able to be informed by what you feel and not start being bossed around by what you feel, okay? Emotionally healthy people do not suppress their feelings. They dance with their feelings. All right. That was good. Okay. We've got one more segment. Y'all already know the Situation Room. Danielle's going to read it for us. Let's go.
The subject line said, "The cross is now a crossroad."
Well, that'll preach.
I need some serious advice.
Okay.
I've been a non-denominational Christian my whole life.
Mm.
My husband never really went to church. I was okay with that because I always believed that in time, God would move in his heart.
Okay.
And he did, but not
Mm.
Recently, my husband started going to a Catholic church,
Mm.
and now he's fully committed. He's talking about getting baptized Catholic, raising our kids Catholic if we have them, and even wants me to convert.
Mm.
I'm not doing that.
Mm.
This is actually putting a bigger strain on our marriage than when he didn't believe in anything at all.
Jesus.
I feel like we are reaching an ultimatum that will break us, and I don't know how to navigate this. How do we make this work when our faith is pulling us in different directions?
All right. Well, okay. That's loaded. Um, okay, let me come from this direction. This is a mess. Um, okay. When we're going into the area of faith, I'm a Christian for those that don't know. So that informs a lot of my thoughts. So there's a scripture in the Bible for those that are Christians that believe in the Bible that says, how can two walk together unless they be agreed? There's a translation of that particular scripture that I like that says, how can two walk together if they're going in the opposite direction? I say that to say one of the first things I would encourage you to do is to pray and ask God to get you and your spouse to a place of agreement. So that you guys are walking in the same direction. I'm sure that it could be discouraging just to think that once he does grab hold of some aspect of faith, that it is in a direction that you're saying is not what you believe in. So that becomes a challenge. One of the things to reframe from a positive lens is that I like when people get to a place where they're willing to believe something. Because I think that there are people that track through life not willing to believe anything at all. And so I think the willingness to surrender to the awareness that there is a higher power, I think is a positive thing. One of the things that I say to people when it comes to marriage, even outside of issues of faith, is that when your spouse is moving in a way that is different than what you believe, and that can come up if we have a different belief on how we should respond to this situation happening with our children. We have a different belief on how and what we should be saving around. So there are so many times within a marriage relationship where you have a conflict of the fact that we're not sharing the same perspective, and that's impactful on a marriage, which you spoke to. But what I would say is, you want to make sure that you don't create an enemy of your spouse in the process of trying to come to a place of togetherness on this topic. That if you don't handle it with love and grace, what's going to happen is that this situation that you don't agree on is going to separate the two of you all even more than the thing that you already feel is causing a separation. And so if you are a Christian and you are a person of faith, honestly, my first suggestion is that you begin to pray about this situation even before you speak on the situation, and ask God to lead and guide you regarding what to do, what to say, if so, when to say what he might impress upon you to say. And the other thing that you can do is ask God to show you how to communicate to your spouse. I'm trying to respect that this is what you're believing right now, but I'm asking you to not ask me to change my belief. So while I'm attempting to try to respect your individuality to believe that, while we're trying to navigate this, what I'm asking is that you not try to force me in some ways to change my belief. Faith is a very sensitive topic. It can be a delicate topic, but I really want to encourage you to walk in wisdom so that you do not create a greater fracture around a situation that you feel is already creating a fracture. And I hope that that makes sense for you as well as for other people that are watching. The need to use wisdom in life is so important. I feel like it's incredibly important as we're moving through this world with other people around the topic of faith, that we have to get to the point where we're being more respectful and more kind when we're engaging with people that have a different perspective than us when it comes to faith. And that for those of us that are of the Judeo-Christian arm of this whole thing, if we say that we're followers of Christ, we have to attempt to follow in the way that we see in the Gospels that he would maneuver. And he was very wise in how he dealt with people from moment to moment and situation to situation. And so just allow God to lead you, and humbly, from my perspective, I would tell you, don't acquiesce, don't turn from your faith. You need to stay with God. You need to believe God, and you need to trust that as you sincerely put this before the Lord, that he's going to work this situation out. That was very layered, but I hope that was helpful to everybody watching. So yeah, fam, I want a lighthearted one situation. It'd be like 9 situations in one situation. But it's okay. I feel like I have the grace, so I think we're able to handle complex things, right? All right, family, I hope that this was helpful. This has been an amazing episode. I want to remind you to send in any questions that you might have. The email is right on the screen right now. And all of the situations that you find yourself in, I want you to send those situations to this email address. And you never know, we might pop up and talk about your situation on the pod. And as always, we want you to like, we want you to share, we want you to comment, we want you to subscribe, we want you to do all of the things. But we're back at it, family. Mondays, it's you and me. Gang, gang. Y'all know I'm from New York. I'm pressed, and that's fine. Hype your city in the comments if you hype about your city. And then put your city in the comment, and I'll let you know what I think about your city. And I'm about to go, and I'm going to put Brooklyn in the comments. And y'all make sure everybody likes it, okay? All right, I love you guys. I'm going to see you next Monday. I hope that you have an amazing week. And, yeah, be blessed. See you soon.